Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video number 344. You don't need a god, or something equivalent to that. I'll explain the differentiation for afterlives or reincarnation to exist. The most obvious solution to this conundrum is matrix theory. Of course, if that's true, we can't really make objective statements about anything. Politics, economics, and physics, certainly religion and spirituality, they all go out the window. Elon Musk appears to be a fan of this concept, although this is an old concept. People act like matrix theory is modern. The basic premise of, hey, maybe everything around us is illusory, actually initially is a spiritual statement from the Far East, and effectively would fit in roughly with like Hindu and Buddhist methodology when you really think about it, because it's the world around you is effectively a trap. This isn't the all-encompassing real reality. Your physical body, your mortal, ever-reincarnating body is sort of like a trap for your spirit, and so forth. They wouldn't say it's a giant video game. That is a total illusion, but they would say that the physical is a quasi-illusion, generally. This is the real you, but it's really just a machine with which you're interacting with a fallen and degenerate world, a degenerated existence. Matrix theory fits. String theory does as well. And here's where you don't need a god or anything for an afterlife. If you assume a karmic or a judgmental existence, that is, hell and heaven, David Chan purgatory, reincarnation in which you can sort of ascend or descend the ladder of spiritual and physical development, you would need some sort of construct behind that, which it tends to be very anthropomorphic in nature, I would point out, in order for that to exist. If you believe in reincarnation as the result of string theory, that is, this is the only self that you're aware of, but it's completely conjoined through spooky action at a distance through time and space, actually, with many other existences, you can't die. You not only can you not die, because you're so interconnected with other things, what will happen is that your self, and I happen to believe partially in this, your self is combined with literally everything else-ness across multiple timelines, you could call them. And they convolute and interlap with one another. When you die, if your self, that is the component of existence that is encompassed more or less by a spiritual enclosure, you could call it, although that's not really a proper term. It's almost impossible to explain, but bear with me. Just imagine an envelope of energy surrounding a certain core of existence, and that happens to be contained as a self. If it's sentient, you've reincarnated. The self is in a new life. You're completely unaware of the last one because the experiences that you have can only actually be processed through a physical brain. The self hasn't changed, but it's incapable of actually existing in the cognitive sense unless there's some cognition going on. If it incarnates into something non-sentient, like a rock that ends up getting eventually destroyed, time passes infinitely quickly, even though it might be a million years. You're not aware of it because you're not sentient. So it gets destroyed, you cycle back in, maybe you're sentient next time. This would roughly comport, by the way, to the concept of animism. It's basically the same concept, the principle that there are energies, awarenesses, spirits, and so forth, and then the rocks and the trees. And a tree is alive, but it's not self-aware. Not in the cognitive sense. It doesn't have a brain or nerves. The rock is not self-aware, and it's not motile unless it's acted upon by an outside force. Bacteria, simple insects and stuff, again, they're not technically self-aware beings. Taxus, just reflex and so forth. But you don't need a deity to explain these things. Science can also explain them. And if matrix theory is true, it'd be interesting. You could have matrix theory, and within that matrix, there's also actually a god. So you die, you go to heaven, you're like, oh, this is great. Now, I guess Christianity was true, and then some indefinite point in the future, you just all of a sudden wake up in a pod. Oh, yeah, did you like that one? You want to play a different video game, or was that the one for you? And you're like actually a four-legged alien or something amorphous and crazy that lives on the planet Zorg, and physics are completely different. It's possible. No God need apply for that. Now, of course, most people who have existed who believe in the concept of the continuation of self in one form or another posthumously. Again, whether it's a final destination, a temporary destination, or the reincarnation into the physical world, most of them have believed in a system of judgment for that. But that human morality is strictly that. It's human. It was not imparted by divine agency. The concept of things that are acceptable or unacceptable to do, and the policing of those behaviors is found among most of the more developed animals in the world too. They even punish one another. Ape tribes do this. It does not require what we would conceive of as self-aware sentience in the human sense in order for these things to exist. That's a biological trait. At least that's my belief. You can claim that God came down and delivered the Ten Commandments and all of these other things, but we can observe in other species incapable of reading English that they have the primitive concept of right and wrong, or at least the biological concept from which our moral concept, our concept of ethics, therefore springs. We can quantify that. We can see it objectively. Even cats and dogs understand this basic premise. They violate it all the time. Apparently they see us as just big dumb cats that are stupid enough to give them food even though all they do is shit everywhere. And wake you up at 2 a.m. I think today it was 4 a.m. So I got a little extra sleep. Yeah, wonderful for me. But it doesn't require a deity or a pantheon or a cosmic intelligence or anything roughly akin to that, or a force like a Jedi-style force. That's not needed under these precepts. You can construct a scientific or just spiritual precept, or an illusory one with matrix theory, that explains the same thing and why those processes would exist and roughly how they operate. That's about all. Peace out.